Assalamu alaikum and welcome to American Islamic College. We are thrilled to have you join us in person, and for those who are joining us online, welcome. We want to begin today by acknowledging that our campus sits on land that was originally entrusted to the indigenous peoples of Turtle Island. As an Islamic-oriented institution of higher education, we believe that we must stand for justice even when we ourselves may be implicated. We acknowledge and honor them, their descendants, and the Black Americans who were forcibly brought here to build this country on stolen land. We acknowledge all those whose sovereignty, culture, and very lives were violated by colonial policy, and we remember those who are suffering around the world. Through rigorous scholarship and a commitment to social justice, the collective good, civic involvement, interfaith understanding, and intercultural engagement, AIC prepares students to become critical thinkers, visionary leaders, and responsible global citizens. You can learn more about our degree programs, courses, and events such as these by visiting our website, www.aicusa.edu, and you also have brochures at your seat, so you can look through that, and the web address is listed there as well. Now, without further ado, we will turn to our program for this evening. We are pleased to have with us Dr. Hazim Fazlic. He will be speaking today on traditional Islamic education in modern times, the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Dr. Hazim is a dedicated teacher, renowned speaker, and interfaith activist. Prior to being appointed to the Islamic Cultural Center of Greater Chicago, Dr. Hazim worked as religious and community leader for the Bosnian Muslim community in London and Birmingham for about 11 years. In 2009, he co-founded Faiths Connected Foundation, a charitable organization dedicated to the promotion of religious harmony and understanding among young people in the wider area of Birmingham. He was educated in Bosnia, where he obtained his education in classical Islamic disciplines at the oldest Muslim educational institution, a madrasa in Southeast Europe. He also obtained his BA in Islamic Studies from the University of Sarajevo, his MA in Islamic Studies at the Center for Islam and Muslim Christian Relations, the University of Birmingham, and his PhD from the same institution. His thesis was on religious changes in former Yugoslavia from 1989 to 2009. His current research interests revolve around the Muslim diaspora from Southeast Europe and the issues of integration and assimilation. Dr. Hazim is also a lecturer at Lake Forest College, where he teaches global Islam and Islam in the 21st century. Please give a very warm welcome to Dr. Hazim Fazlic.
Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. Before we start, presentation. Okay, good. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to be part of your lecture series and to present on traditional Islamic education in modern times, the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is my second or third time here at American Islamic College. My first time was here when about 10 years ago, when I came for a job interview, and my brother-in-law brought me here to American Islamic College to show me around this impressive building and impressive institution. So my presentation today and my talk is about traditional Islamic education in modern times. What prompted me to talk about this topic is this document here that you can see on the slide, which is endowment deed of Ghazi Husrev Bey Madrasa from 1537, and that's called Waqfnama. And it's the word Waqfnama is adopted from Turkish or Ottoman, And it says, among other things in this document, he will teach students tafsir, hadith, the basics of law, stylistics, apologetics, and other sciences in accordance with what custom and place require. So this is quite interesting for me, and it has been interesting, is in accordance with what custom and place require other sciences. So basically, the founder of Ghazi Husrev Bey Madrasa 480 years ago, he stipulated that there will be changes in times, and there will be changes in terms of subjects, teaching and learning at Ghazi Husrev Bey Madrasa. So what is traditional Islamic education? In order to talk about the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina, I would like to place this into a context. So traditional Islamic education is defined as a system of education that started with the beginning of Islam and continued to our times. The first mosque in Medina was the first institution of the study of Islam. Sayyid Hussein Nasr, in his book, Science and Civilization in Islam, rightly noticed that the first place in which a teaching was carried on in Islam was the mosque. And ever since the very first decades of Muslim history, the institutions of learning have remained, for the most part, inseparable from the mosque and have usually been supported by religious endowments. This has continued to be the case all over the world where Muslims lived, as far as Malaysia, Indonesia, North Africa, and other regions. So the mosque began to serve as a school as early as the reign of the second Caliph, Omar radiallahu anhu, from 634 to 644, when he sent qas or narrators to different centers of learning at that time in the Islamic Empire, to Kufa, Basra, Damascus, to teach Quran and to teach Hadith, to teach Quranic sciences, and also to teach narrations of the Prophet Muhammad. Gradually, instruction in Arabic language and grammar and literature was introduced and incorporated into Islamic studies or traditional Islamic studies. Why? Because more and more people came into this context of Islamic empire, people who did not know, who did not speak Arabic language, and to be able to study Islamic studies, to be able to study Quran and Hadith, they obviously needed Arabic language. The first subject of Islamic education was and is still Quran. Its recitation, memorization, understanding, and interpretation. Quran is needed for obviously acts of worship, but also to understand Islam in general. So to understand the teachings of the Quran, one needs to understand and know Hadith and Arabic and tafsir and all other disciplines that went with the Quran. So the first stage of Islamic education has been Quran schools or maktab in many regions where Muslims constitute majority of population. So throughout the Muslim world, regardless of religious doctrine, school of law, racial composition, or language, the curriculum is the same or similar. The curriculum of the maktab centered around the Quran, and the child was taught to learn, to read and memorize the Quran by heart. The child also learned to read, write, and calculate in some areas of Muslim world. Also was taught Arabic language, literature, to appreciate to appreciate the Holy Quran and tradition of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So during this stage, the emphasis is made on memorization and repetition, not that much on comprehension. Comprehension is left to later stages of the Islamic education. So Maktab was used to gain basic knowledge on Islam, but also to prepare students for a more advanced study of Islamic studies. The second and intermediate intermediate stage of Islamic education has been madrasa. Madrasa or madaris in plural provides a more specialized knowledge. Some aspects of memorization and repetition still continue, but madrasa prepares students to be teachers, muallims, to be alims or scholars themselves. The basic subjects in the madrasa are Quran or Quran studies, Hadith, Islamic jurisprudence, and Arabic language. The madrasa system reached its climax during 11th century, during Seljuk Wazir Nizam al-Mulk, when he established a series of madrasas throughout the Middle East. One of the famous was the one in Baghdad, where Al-Ghazali taught. And a number of other madrasas were established. For instance, in Jerusalem, Saladin introduced madrasa in 1189. And then Almohads, they established a number of madrasas in North Africa in the 12th century. So now we can go on the third stage of Islamic education, which is or which can be considered as an extension of the previous two stages, and it is a university level or jamia, and it is advanced level and combines a number of Islamic disciplines which are being, where students are being specialized in those disciplines. It prepares students for roles of qadis, judges, muftis, or persons who issue legal fatwas or opinions, and other administrative roles, whether in the state or in Islamic community. So to mention just a few of the earliest ones, Zaytuna in Tunisia, Al-Qaravain, and Al-Azhar. So each of these institutions have been linked with mosque and originated from the mosque. Education has always been a constituent part of community activities and efforts, while teachers and students being part of the community or coming from the community. So this is a small overview of a history of traditional Islamic education and institutions where traditional Islamic education has been sought. Now I would like to talk about modern times and why do we need to talk about traditional Islamic education in modern times. So the question is, does the current Islamic education satisfy the needs and the requirements of our times? Islamic education as system of learning has been in existence, as we have seen, for the last 1400 years. As times change, does the moods, models, and expectation of education change? The current teachers in our primary schools, for instance, they are preparing students for job market or careers that will exist or will be in 15 or 20 years on the market. A few months ago, I spoke to a principal of my son's school, and he said, yes, we are preparing these kids who are 11, 12 years old for job market or for careers that will be around in 10, 15 or 20 years. So do we need to change our approach to the traditional Islamic education? Do we need to introduce something new or something different? One of my previous teachers and professors, Professor Enes Karic, writes on inevitable changes and reforms of traditional Islamic education in modern times, in modern context. So he writes and he says that reforms and changes have to happen because of three main reasons. He says that he mentions the context of globalization and context of Western cultural context. So in which modern technologies and liberal values play an important part. It must happen because of Islamic universalism. Islam, in many respects, is a particularistic religion, as it is the case with many other religious traditions. We read in the Quran, "Inna ad-dina 'inda Allah al-Islam." The only religion with Allah is Islam. However, there are a number of references in the Quran that talk about more universalistic nature of Islam. إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ وَأُنثَىٰ وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. We have created you from one man and one woman, and we made you into nations and tribes in order to recognize each other. Thus, one will find that universal values of justice and kindness take precedence over religious pluralism. This is why in today's globalized world, changes in how we teach Islam are inevitable. Also, intellectual profiling of contemporary Muslims is different to one of 50 and 100 years ago that existed. Our students and the general population are becoming better informed, more educated, capable of questioning the long-held religious views. This is the case regardless whether one lives in the West or in Muslim-majority countries. Religious authorities and sometimes teachers of religious education themselves expect unquestionable obedience and discipline from their following or from their students. The subject of religion cannot be taken lightly. This is what tradition of Islam teaches us. However, modern educational systems that place emphasis on inquiring and questioning, evaluating and analyzing and criticizing influence our students of Islamic studies. And that can be sometimes at odds with a long-standing tradition of Islamic education. So that is the second part or second context that I'm placing this topic on Islamic education in Bosnia, traditional Islamic education in Bosnia. So the first one is basically an overview of history of traditional Islamic education. The second one is the need and the context of modern times in globalized world in which we live. So now I would like just to say a few words on the role of Islamic education before I talk about the case of Bosnia. So to better understand or to better assess the role of traditional Islamic education in modern times, we need to clarify the objectives of that education. What do we want to achieve with that education? What are the goals that one may seek in pursuit of one's Islamic education? So I have here a couple of goals that an individual who is pursuing knowledge in Islamic studies may seek or may achieve. So the first one and obvious one is learning to practice Islam. We need knowledge about Islam or knowledge on Islam for personal piety. So this is the first element or first goal that many people are having in their lives when they study Islamic studies, Quran, Hadith, Fiqh, and so on, for their personal piety. The second one is qualifying for a professional role as imam and khatib at mosque. So many people, hundreds of thousands of individuals, that are pursuing their education for the role of imam and khatib in a mosque. And that is the case in a number of Muslim majority countries. That is the case in, for instance, Turkey, modern day khatib and imam khatib schools. That is the case in Bosnia and madrasas. And that is also the case in a number of other countries. Then there is also goal of teaching Islam at various levels, whether we are teaching Islam at maktab level or intermediate level in madrasa. So a number of individuals that are pursuing their education in Islamic studies to assume roles of teachers. That could be on a voluntary basis, that could be on paid full-time basis, but that's another goal that or aim of the Islamic education, or to the role of Islamic education. And then obviously there is another one, which is about researching, lecturing, writing, publishing on Islam and about Islam, and engaging general public in the field of Islamic studies. That is applicable to Muslims as well as non-Muslims. There are many great scholars in Islam who are not Muslims, but they are experts in Islamic studies. And finally, there is a goal of serving community in many other ways, as counselors, as chaplains, and so on. And probably there are many more goals or roles of Islamic education, what people want, why people want to study classical Islamic disciplines, why people want to study Quran or Hadith or history of Islam, and so on. And now I will start my discussion on the case of Bosnia. So I would like to talk about Gazi Husrev Bey Madrasa, which was established in 1537. I don't know why these letters are small in my presentation, or my computer, they were a little bit larger, but regardless. So we talked about 9, 10, 11 centuries of a number of schools and Islamic institutions being established throughout the Muslim world. The empires of 14, 15, 16, Islamic empires of 14, 15, and 16 centuries, the Mughals, the Safavids, the Ottomans, they adopted those institutions, and they established those institutions in the areas where they expanded to. And that is the case also with the Ottomans, who adopted a system of traditional Islamic education, and they established a number of madrasas and maktabs in the areas where they expanded. So they established a number of madrasas, especially in Rumeli side of the Ottoman Empire, or in Eastern Europe. So one of those madrasas that is subject of our discussion is, as I mentioned, Gazi Husrev Bey Madrasa, established by Gazi Husrev Bey in 1537. And Gazi Husrev Bey was Ottoman governor of Bosnia, and that is the only school in Bosnia, and one of rare in the world that has been in continuous operation and continuously been working for the last 480 years. So the reason why I'm discussing this school is first its prominence in the region of Southeastern Europe. It is a school that was established, one of the first schools, and has been in existence, as I said, for more than 480 years. that educated more than 10,000 students for the past 5 centuries. We could talk about a number of other madrasas in Bosnia and region. There are 6 more madrasas in Bosnia, but all of those schools, they are modeled on Gazi Husrev Bey Madrasa. Also its founder, Gazi Husrev Bey, he was a son of Bosnian nobleman, Farhad Bey, a grandson of, let me just see, sorry. So this Ottoman governor, he established a madrasa, and he was a grandson of Bayezid Sultan Bayezid Sultan on mother's side. So he was very influential in the area, was born in Greece, but he was, his father was from Bosnia. So he commissioned an architect from Persia called Ajam Asir Ali to design and construct this madrasa. And throughout most of its history, the madrasa educated only male students. However, in 1933, the first grade of girls' school was opened. And in 1940, the Islamic authorities of former Yugoslavia made a decision to call it Gazi Husrev Bey Women's Madrasa. And it worked until its abolition in 1949. During the communist times, from 1945 to 1990s, this was the only madrasa, along with another madrasa in Pristina, Kosovo, that was operational. Before 1945, there were about 40 madrasas in Bosnia in operation, but all of them were shut down by the communist regime and restrictive measures of the regime to relegate the religion in general and religion of Islam in particular. So they were, confiscating properties of Waqf properties and so on, and they shut down more than 38 madrasas in the region. So before we talk about subjects that are studied in madrasa, let me just talk a little bit about the traditional career prospects of its graduates. So if someone goes to madrasa, it is expected that that person would most likely become imam, khatib, and muallim. And about 90-something% of its graduates from madrasa, they would become imams, khatibs, and muallims. And before the 90s, before 1994, 1995, students who graduated from madrasa, they would get diploma saying this is diploma for imam, khatib, and muallim. That meant this person is qualified to lead prayers, to give khutbahs, and to teach children in maktab. So that was the main idea behind madrasa. However, they could be also candidates for higher education. And during the Ottoman times, they could go to different places, mainly in Istanbul, to study at university level. During communist times, students were restricted, and very few were able to study at university level because of this, as I mentioned, communist restriction or restrictive policies. During Ottoman times, they could become qadis, judges, qadi askars, chief judges, shaykhul islams, and so on. During most recent times, or in most recent times, they could become muftis, rais ul ulama. For those of you who don't know what rais ul ulama means, it is a title given to the Grand Mufti of Bosnia and called rais ul ulama, meaning the chair of scholars, or the head of scholars. Then professors, scientists, academics, mayors, diplomats, ministers, and statements as I said, in recent times. So these were traditional career prospects. Now let me just say a few words on subjects that are studied, or that endowment charter envisioned to be studied. So in his endowment, he said that in the madrasa that the Waqif wants to build, create and raise it high and endow it for students and in general for people who strive for science and improvement, in which they will deal with the rational and traditional sciences, should be appointed a learned, excellent and exemplary and prudent man who uncovers the veils of truth with the spoken written word, who unites the branches and roots of science, who rules over the rational and traditional. He will teach students tafsir, hadith, the basics of law, stylistics, apologetics, and other sciences in accordance with what custom and place require. That learned man will give people legal solutions, fatwas, for those Sharia questions for which they will learn to turn to him according to the most reliable Sharia legal school and opinion, using the book of fatwas in any case. It is also a condition that he be under the respected supervision of the Waqf at every age and that he constantly take care of it. So this is part of the endowment charter of the madrasa that was written in 1537. So several things are evident here. First, the founder wants students to study rational as well as traditional sciences. He enumerates following subjects: tafsir, hadith, the basics of law, stylistics, and apologetics. Not many, but then he stipulates the following: and other sciences in accordance with what custom and place require. So this endowment charter gave flexibility to administrators of madrasa, to administrators of Waqf, and to the leaders of the Islamic community of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and before that, Yugoslavia, to introduce new subjects, to adjust those subjects that are studying, and to basically look at the requirements and demands of the time and place. That is why later on, other disciplines, Islamic disciplines, were introduced to reflect the standard curriculum for most madrasas during the Ottoman time. This is also the reason why there is a constant change of subjects studied and models of learning in recent times. Currently, the curriculum of madrasa can be compared with one of the Imam Khatib schools in Turkey, or Pondok madrasas in Malaysia, or traditional Islamic schools in Nigeria. So this is a list of subjects that are studied currently in madrasa. So there are 4 or 5 areas of study. The first one is Islamic studies. And those numbers that you see next to Islamic studies, number 1, 2, 3, and 4, those are the years of study. And the numbers underneath, 3, 3, 2, 2, are hours per week. So in first year, Quran recitation would be 3 hours a week, and then second year, 3 hours a week, then in third year, 2 hours a week, and so on. So among the Islamic studies are Quran recitation, Aqidah, Fiqh, Tafsir, Akhlaq, which is Islamic ethics, Hadith, and the history of Islam. So this is Islamic studies area of the subject at madrasa. And then there are social studies, again, general history, geography, philosophy, psychology, logic, and sociology. So depending on the year students are in, they would study either psychology or geography or history and so on. So that is these are the first 2 groups of subjects. And then there are also languages. There is a Bosnian language, which is more advanced study of native Bosnian native of native language of Bosnia. We learned already that these students will be imams, khatibs, and they will be speakers, to their communities. So obviously they should have high level of their oratory skills. Then Arabic, 3 hours per week, and then English language. Before, there was also Turkish language, and now it is more, on voluntary basis. Then there are natural sciences, mathematics, physics, chemistry, and biology. So these are the subjects that are currently studied at Gazi Husrev Bey Madrasa in Sarajevo. Prior to 1990s, the natural sciences section was not included, and students did not study mathematics, physics, chemistry, or biology. And as a result, were not able to continue their education at local universities. So they could not study any other subject except Islamic studies, or in some cases, just sociology. So in 1993, 1994, a new curriculum was introduced with new subjects. Latin language at that time was introduced, mathematics, physics, and chemistry. This enabled the graduates of Gazi Husrev Bey Madrasa to enroll in almost all higher education institutions in Bosnia and many, many abroad. So this gave them a large area or a number of career prospects. So the recent survey of graduates of the madrasa has shown that the diversity of career choices and prospects among its current graduates. So I surveyed, I found a document in which they asked their 117 graduates last year where they want to go after madrasa, what they want to do, what they want to study. So I have not included students who did not give a response or said that they will work somewhere, but only students who will continue their education. So it is very interesting. 7 students want to pursue medical field, 7 students want to pursue software engineering, 5 economy, 2 art, 8 students want to pursue Islamic studies, 3 students graphic design, 8 students architecture, and then there are 1 or 2 students for electrotechnics, military, crime justice, history, microbiology, business law, psychology, pedagogy, and so on. So prior to the 90s, students or graduates from madrasa had very, very limited scope of their career prospects. They, in most cases, 90% cases, they could be just imams, khatibs, muallims. But after the 1990s, this enabled them huge choice of career prospects. Now you would ask, why didn't they introduce this before? They wanted, but because of political reasons, because of communist regime, they were not able to introduce new subjects. And also on the part of the Islamic community, they needed imams, they needed khatibs, they needed muallims for their masajids, for their mosques. Around 3,000 mosques operated prior to, in the 80s, 70s, and 80s in former Yugoslavia. So they needed graduates from madrasa either to study Islamic studies and continue working as imams, or to go directly from madrasa as graduates and work in their communities. So that, as I said, there are 2 reasons. Now you would ask, do they have shortage of staff now? Do they have shortage of imams? No, because before the 1990s, there were only 2 madrasas. Now in former Yugoslavia, now only in Bosnia, there are 7 madrasas. In each major city of Bosnia, there is madrasa. So students have a wide choice of career opportunities, but Islamic community as well has a number of graduates that will pursue Islamic studies and will serve as imams, khatibs, and muallims. I have here a few pictures of students from madrasa. Now I want to talk about sustainability. I'm sure that every administrator of every college, every dean or every president is thinking about sustainability of their institution, how to provide enough income for their institution to continue their work. So I mentioned before that madrasa has been in the existence for last 480 years. So in this picture here, I just wanted to digress a little bit. If you see that small building in the left corner in the red, that is the original madrasa, which was called Seljukiya at the beginning, after the name of Ghazi Husrev Bey's mother. Next to it, on the right side, is Hanika. Hanika is a Persian word, and it's used for Sufi lodge, Sufi center. So at that time, they had also the study of Sufism as a part of their curriculum. And the building around it now, the big white building from right side and also on behind, it is a new madrasa, which has about 200 students. So they have dorms there, they live there, and also classrooms. There is another picture I will show you where mosque is the main mosque where students go for daily prayers. So there are several factors that contributed to longevity and success of this madrasa. The first one is the prestige and influence of the founder. From the very beginning, madrasa was envisioned as a prestigious school. Madrasa during the Ottoman time had a higher level of education. The professors of Ghazi Husrev Bey madrasa are chosen according to strict criteria prescribed by the founder himself, which included expertise, experience, and human qualities. Many competed for this very demanding and respectable job. Many of them were Arabs, Turks, Albanians, as well as Bosnians. So this is the first reason that we find that the founder himself was viceroy, governor of Bosnia, and his very name and prestige was basically reflected onto the prestige of madrasa. The second reason is a large endowment that Ghazi Husrev Bey left in the 16th century. So he left large sums of money for the mosque, library, soup kitchen, Hanika or Sufi center. And I found in the documents there that he left 700,000 silver dirhams at the time. I'm not good in calculating what that would reflect these days, but I found it that it would be around $1.5 million in modern money. I don't know, for Bosnian circumstances at that time, it would probably be a huge amount of money. But also he left 200 shops, dukkan called, and other properties, land in Bosnia, in Croatia. At that time, Croatia was part of the Ottoman Empire, and in Greece, in Salonika, which was also part of the Ottoman Empire, and over there he was born. So that is the second reason why this school has much success and longevity. However, not all properties survived or were retained as waqf, and then a number of fires destroyed those properties. Some were rebuilt, some were lost forever. For instance, those properties in Greece and Croatia, due to geopolitical reasons, they were lost. And then during communist regime, through nationalization and without compensation, almost all property of Ghazi Husrev Bey Waqf that was bringing profit was taken away from Waqf and from the Islamic community. So how did the school then survive? Thanks to the organization and maintenance within the Islamic community, the Waqf survived this most difficult period of in its history. So we come here to the third reason for longevity and success of madrasa, and that is a strong community support of the local Islamic organization as well as people in general. As it is the case with some other institutions of traditional Islamic learning in the world, the students of madrasa come from different towns and cities around the country. The institution is trusted by local people. Even during the time of study, they are sent to serve to local communities, usually as Tarawih imams. I studied at this institution. I spent every Ramadan during those 4 years in different places where villages or small towns would not have full-time imam. So during the month of Ramadan, they will require Tarawih imam to be there, and madrasa would send its students to lead prayers and also to teach children, to teach adults, to give lectures, and so on. So there has been this continuous community involvement with madrasa. Also, during the period of communism, due to confiscation of Waqf property, the Islamic community organized collection of zakat and sadaqatul fitr for the needs of madrasa. Before 1960s, zakat was given just to the poor and individually. The Islamic community of Bosnia, former Yugoslavia, they issued fatwa. A scholar called the Hussein Jozo, a graduate of Al-Azhar, he issued a fatwa that zakat should be collected and sadaqatul fitr should be collected for the needs of madrasa, because madrasa was in their need of support, and significant amount of money was collected in that way to support the operation of this institution. Also, there is something very interesting I want to mention here. One of the main imams, or the main imam of the main mosque in Sarajevo, called Hafiz Kamil Silajic, he bought animal and slaughtered a qurbani in the courtyard of his mosque, and he donated the meat as a food for the students. So, and he also recommended everyone who was coming to the mosque to do the same. Okay, so that was a symbolic way for students to be fed and to be supported. And this practice of collecting qurbani for students of madrasas has continued to our present times. And I can share with you that, for instance, all Bosnian Muslim communities, whether they are in Bosnia or abroad, they donate their qurbanis or pay their qurbanis to be slaughtered in Bosnia and distributed in Bosnia for madrasas. 52 communities from America here, Bosnian communities from America, they donated last year more than 3,000 qurbani for a number of these madrasas that I mentioned. Obviously, that meat is now more than enough for students, and a number of other organizations are supported, charitable organizations, other schools, as well as soup kitchens. But I just wanted, to share this with you, that a small symbolic act of an imam, local imam, started a tradition that was able, or is the tradition that is supporting students of madrasas. There is a third element, or third thing that I want to mention. Currently, all madrasas in Bosnia are recognized as high schools, and they receive certain amount of money from the government for its secular subjects. So you have seen that only one portion of the subjects are Islamic studies, and probably about 70% or 65, 70% of other subjects are could be regarded as non-religious subjects, and madrasa receives, or madrasas receive money or funds from the government. Today, students from 8 male and 8 female classes attend the madrasa from all over Bosnia and its diaspora. The program of the Gazi Husrev Bey Madrasa from its foundation in 1537 until today was the model according to which the program of other similar schools were made. Conceived to include the study of traditional and rational sciences, it enables students to acquire theological, philosophical, legal, philological, and exact knowledge. And I want just to last thing. Okay, so this is another picture that I wanted to share with you. So when the founder, when Gazi Husrev Bey established the madrasa, which is this small building in the middle, then he also built a huge mosque next to it. So this is called Gazi Husrev Bey Mosque, and this is also Waqf. And then next to the madrasa, as I mentioned on the right, there is Hanika or Sufi Center. On the left, what is now, there is this green dome that you see in the green roof. That is modern day or modern Gazi Husrev Bey Library. So that is a new building that was built recently, but throughout the Ottoman times, as well as last 150 years of when the Ottoman Empire withdrew, Gazi Husrev Bey Library was operational and was collecting books and from donors, and also was at service to members of the community. A number of manuscripts are there from 300, 400 years ago, and so on. So all of this is basically Waqf. Now, around this area, you will see those red roofs of a number of shops, dukans. Some of them, they are Waqf, some of them, they are not. Some of them, they are nationalized, confiscated by previous governments. And there is still ongoing legal battle from the Islamic community to return those Waqf properties, confiscated Waqf properties. That's another picture of madrasa, the old madrasa, new madrasa, and library, as well as the mosque. Finally, let me conclude our session this evening. So today, or this evening, we talked about traditional Islamic education, and we have seen that Muslims rely on centuries-long tradition of Islamic education. We also have seen that traditional Islamic education is same or similar in most regions where Muslims live. We also talked about institutions and subjects of traditional Islamic educations. We have said that there will inevitably occur some changes and reforms of the traditional Islamic education due to modern globalized context Muslims live in. Obviously, this was not main part of my presentation, and I'm sure that there are many more learned individuals who would be able to talk about challenges to traditional Islamic education in modern times. But I wanted to put this presentation into the context of modern times. And madrasas or the madrasa in Bosnia is a good example of longevity and adaptability of Islamic education in both Muslim majority and Muslim minority contexts. Why majority and minority? Because during the Ottoman times, obviously Muslims were living in majority context, and nowadays, although they represent some kind of relative majority, 50% of Muslims are, 50% of Bosnian population are Muslims, but this is still a minority context. And we also talked about longevity and success of madrasa that can be ascribed to the prestige of the founder, large endowment, and community involvement and support. So I don't know how much time I took this evening, but this was my presentation on traditional Islamic education, the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Thank you very much.
Can we take a few questions?
Yeah.
So thank you very much. I really appreciated the historical dimension and the overview, and there were a number of things I wrote down, but I'm going to try to be brief so I don't dominate the discussion. There was, let me just see here. So one question that comes up, especially when we're talking about traditional Islamic education. And, you know, certainly after Sayyid Naqib al-Attas came out with his work and raising the questions about the cosmology in which education happens. Certainly in a traditional Islamic educational context, science and theology and Quranic studies and hadith and everything was understood to be part of an integrated sphere of knowledge, right? So that it was not unusual, for example, for Ibn Sina to be doing philosophy and to be writing medical books and to be engaging in mystical practices and writing mystical treatises. And so it was not unusual for them to be engaged in astronomy and medicine and music and all these other disciplines. One of the things that I think that we see in post-Enlightenment modern education, when we use that word modern especially, is that education becomes fragmented, it becomes compartmentalized. So much so that if I go to the physician who's my podiatrist and I ask him a question about my back, he'll say, no, I don't do backs, right? I don't do back, let alone literature or philosophy or anything else. He won't even talk about your back or your headache or anything else. And so we now have one of the things about modern education is that we have no overarching, let's say, or no overarching integration, right? So that we become a specialist in this, right? Or I become a specialist in that. And I may know in the PhD, the way we do PhDs is that, as you know, we go very deep into one thing, and there's so much that we don't know. I know people who have written whole dissertations with a little bit of Arabic and one hadith and a few things, and they go down and they go down and they go down the rabbit hole, and they emerge with a PhD and then a job in Islamic studies when they really don't know anything about Islamic studies or anything, and that's just an example. But what I'm saying is that when we talk about an institution like this, right, and we're talking about modern education, the influx of, let's say, what we might call modern disciplines in this academic setting, have the institutions, for example, like this madrasa, have they been able to preserve a sense of the integration so that there is no such thing as, let's say, a secular science? There's Islamically integrated understandings of biology or Islamically integrated understandings of psychology. Or are these new disciplines being just stuck into the curriculum with no connection to the traditional curriculum? You know what I mean? And so in that case, our traditional institutions become dichotomous, where the theological dimension, which is all integrated, right, is there. But then this Western modern curriculum, which has been stuck in there, it's not in any way connected or in conversation with the other sciences that are under the same roof. And so how does that work?
So, yeah, you're right. I think Al-Farabi wrote about, classification of Islamic, or not Islamic, sciences in general. Yeah. And he wrote about like 40 branches. And classical Islamic scholars, they saw science or knowledge to be pursued as branches of one tree. So there is, overarching theme of everything, and they were looking for monotheism. So the roots of the tree is basically monotheism, and the science or any kind of science cannot be pursued indefinitely. It should be some kind of overarching.
Or let's say separately.
Yeah.
Even Imam Ghazali said that if I find a Quranic verse, and my understanding of the Quranic verse contradicts what we say is what we understand to be demonstration or demonstrated science, it doesn't mean that the Quran is wrong, but it also doesn't mean the science is wrong. It just means that science has shown me that. Are we okay, brother?
No, it's
Yeah.
fine. It's fine.
All right, okay. But so what he said is that science has shown me that my reading of Quran is incorrect, because the Quran and science cannot be, demonstration science cannot be contradicting each other. So he said that, so that sometimes in order to understand a Quranic verse, maybe, we need to have that scientific background, or we need to be in conversation with people who have that scientific background. But the idea was that everything was still in conversation.
So going back to your question about madrasa and is there any kind of integration between religious as well as scientific or pure science, biology, chemistry, and so on? The problem that we have in modern world is that we don't have capable teachers that have both sides of knowledge. So in the case of Bosnia, we have professors of biology who are professors of biology, at madrasa as well as somewhere else in just another regular school. So they come and they follow the curriculum that is followed in terms of biology and chemistry that is followed statewide. Okay,
Yeah.
so that is the first problem that we come across, that we don't have, and still even in the West, we don't have enough capable professionals who are well versed in both disciplines, religious as well as.
But the problem is that we don't have institutions that are producing those kinds of scholars, right? Who have depth in both areas. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's why we don't have these teachers, is because we don't have institutions that are producing them.
You're right, and I think in future we will have some kind. For instance, going back to institutions of Islamic learning, I mentioned just like 3, Maktab, Madrasa, but there are 2 more that are mentioned in the book of, for instance, Science, written by Sayyid Hussein Nasser. He mentions hospitals, which were also institutions of learning Islamic studies. And then he mentions also observatories where astronomy was studied. And there is also the third one, which was research centers like Beit al-Hikmah, Dar al-Hikmah, Beit al-Hikmah in Baghdad, Dar al-Hikmah in Egypt, and so on. So I don't know, but this does not, what you ask does not exist in madrasa, and we are still at this level of separate disciplines.
Side by side.
Yes,
in the same school.
now the question is whether we will have those students when they finish madrasa and they're continuing medicine, they're continuing other studies like microbiology and so on, whether they will in a few years come back and maybe not establish like a new madrasa, but could establish like a small course linked with the madrasa, or even Faculty of Islamic Studies. So madrasa is one level that I talked about, which is most influential and the longest one. But there is another institution in Sarajevo called Faculty of Islamic Studies, which is part of the University of Sarajevo. It's higher level, but no, there is no integration of medicine or all those biology or chemistry to look at them. Now, some scholars, they have problem with Islamizing knowledge or Islamizing sciences. And Mustafa Akil wrote about that, saying that
even the founding president and provost of AIC, Dr. Al-Farouqi, may God be merciful to him, he also was, very much about the Islamicization of science.
Yeah.
But maybe and I guess for me, it's not so much about Islamicizing the science as it is about integrating, right? And so maybe that's another way of saying the same thing, but that is that our theology should have scientific implications, and our science should have theological implications. So they should be in conversation,
Yes. So the least what we can do is to have some kind of moral code that will be sent off from religious side to rule over this secular side of sciences. So Islamic value system to be integrated, or at least to channel medicine, to channel biology, chemistry, any physics, and any other subjects, so that knowledge or science would not be used in for the destruction of humanity, or for a negative purpose, but for benefit of humanity. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Salam alaikum. You mentioned that in the original Waqf for the Ghazi Beg Madrasa, they had the potential to change the curriculum as the needs of society changed.
Yes.
In the 1920s and 30s, they set up the School of Higher Sharia in Sarajevo,
Yes.
which did some of those things. They taught classes in Latin, they taught Islamic law, they prepared people to be Islamic judges, but that school got closed down when the Islamic courts, the Islamic schools, all except for Ghazi Husrefeg, got closed. So why, when they opened the School of Islamic Studies in University of Sarajevo, didn't they incorporate some of those ideas back into the institution?
So that's why I made this introduction, an overview of history of Islamic institutions. So madrasa is an intermediate level. It is specialized, but it's not at research level, or still in madrasa you will have a lot of memorization, repetition, but at a university level, you will have more evaluation, criticism, analysis, and Muslims at that time, they thought that they would need a higher level of education, and that's why they introduced Sharia school, and also in 1970s they established the Faculty of Islamic Studies, at that time Islamic Theological Faculty, to satisfy the needs of the community, because students or graduates from madrasa, they would go to other parts of the Muslim world. They would go to Al-Azhar or Istanbul or Baghdad and so on. So they wanted a number of students to remain there and to study Islamic studies at higher level. And that's why they established those. Now, it was closed down because of political reasons, and as well as a number of other things that happened with the Muslim community, as well as non-Muslim communities in that region, due to political reasons. Because after 1878, when the Ottomans withdrew, a number of political changes happened, administrative changes. Austro-Hungary occupied Bosnia from 1878 to 1914, and then the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes, and then Kingdom of Yugoslavia, and then one war, second war, and then also communist Yugoslavia. So all these periods, they seriously affected Muslims as well as non-Muslims in that part of the world. A number of properties were confiscated. Waqf was almost lost, and billions of dollars worth of Waqf are still disputed at courts in Bosnia.
One last question. You can take one last question.
Go ahead. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
My name is Muhammad. I'm Muhammad Abdullah from Sudan. Thank you for this lecture. Great effort, mashallah. May Allah bless it. My question: is there any extent of this madrasa to the other Yugoslavian country? Any extend any any new branches in Yugoslavian country, or does Yugoslavia other like from Croatia student come to this madrasa?
Okay, we will start with Croatia. So there was a madrasa for some time in Zagreb, in capital of Croatia, and then they changed madrasa to be Bosnian gymnasium or something like that. So it's not madrasa anymore. In Bosnia, as I said, 7 or 8 madrasas are in operation, and then there are in Serbia. There are 2 madrasas modeled on the madrasa in Sarajevo, or Bosnian madrasas. One in Belgrade, one in a small city called Novi Pazar or New Pazar, where predominantly Muslims live. There is a madrasa in Montenegro, which is again independent country. There is a madrasa in Kosovo, which is independent country. There is a madrasa in Macedonia. And I'm not sure about Bulgaria, Romania. There is significant number of Muslims living in those countries, anywhere between 500,000 and million. But in these countries that I listed, there are madrasas established, and they are meeting the demands of local communities.
So local Bosnian communities or
that is so Yugoslavia as a country does not exist anymore. So Yugoslavia existed as a socialist federal republic, Yugoslavia from 1945 to 1990s. So, and then there was like rump Yugoslavia later on, but as a country does not exist anymore. And it consisted of Slovenia at that time, Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, Macedonia, Montenegro. Nowadays, these are all independent countries with extra Kosovo, which has become so. In most of these regions, for instance, in Kosovo, they don't speak even Bosnian language. They are non-Bosnians, they are Albanians. In Macedonia, it's Albanian, Macedonian population. In Montenegro, they consider themselves sometimes as Montenegrin Muslims, sometimes as Bosniaks, which is another name for Bosnian Muslims. In Novi Pazar, in Serbia, they consider themselves as Bosniaks. But in Belgrade, for instance, there is a madrasa that includes Bosniaks and Albanians and a number of other ethnic groups. So yeah, these are the institutions of traditional Islamic learning in that region.
Thank you so much.
You're
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fazlic, for being with us. We have a talk next week. It's part of our alumni journey series. Bill Chambers will be speaking. He is a graduate of AIC. He graduated with a master's degree, and he wrote a book. And he'll be talking about his book, The Muslim American Fight for Social Justice from Civil Rights to Black Lives Matter. And part of his thesis brought about this research in this book. So we hope you can join us next Wednesday at 6:30, inshallah. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.